It was 10:02 p.m. when the alert flashed on my main monitor, red. Insistent. Impossible to ignore. The firewall breach warning felt like a punch in the gut. I'm Maya, lead cybersecurity engineer at Sentinel Dynamics, a defense tech startup in Seattle. We'd been chasing a $21 million government contract for over a year. And now everything hinged on this night. Most of the team had gone home hours ago. The office was quiet except for the hum of servers and the occasional clicking of my keyboard. I glanced toward Liam, our CTO, who was packing up by his desk. "Did you see this?" I asked. He barely looked up, brushing it off as a false alarm. But something in my gut screamed otherwise. Alone with the blinking alert and a shrinking window of time, I knew the weight of the company's future rested squarely on my shoulders. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever was hiding in the system. This wasn't just a glitch, it was a fight to keep everything I'd worked for from collapsing in the dark. The moment Liam walked away, shutting down his laptop and slipping out without a word, something inside me clenched. It was 10:15 p.m., and the office lights had dimmed to a tired glow. I was alone, except for the blinking red alert mocking me from the screen. He didn't believe it was real, but I did. I could feel the pulse of the threat beneath the surface, subtle, buried deep in the code, invisible to anyone just skimming through logs. I leaned closer, fingers flying across the keyboard as I peeled back layers of system activity. The firewall logs showed no obvious intrusion, but I knew better. Months ago, I'd flagged a possible vulnerability in our external endpoint integration, something that had been dismissed as low priority. Now that oversight was screaming at me from the depths of the system. The vulnerability wasn't just a minor misconfiguration. It was a structural flaw in the integration framework itself, a hidden fault line that could be exploited to access sensitive data or cripple our security protocols. If left unpatched, it would kill the contract. I knew what was at stake. I tried reaching Liam again. No answer. Slack pinged with a sleepy away message from our security analyst. "Ping me in the morning." Morning wasn't coming for this deal, not if I didn't act. So I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I isolated the flaw by 11:40 p.m. Every line of code I rewrote felt like a small battle won. But I knew the war wasn't over. The integration was complex, with multiple endpoints and legacy archive servers that hadn't been properly secured during beta. I had to pull all of them back online, rewrite authentication protocols, and verify compliance with federal standards, all while the clock ticked mercilessly toward midnight. The fatigue was setting in. My eyes burned, my fingers cramped, but there was no room for doubt. I rewrote encryption algorithms, rebuilt configuration files, and ran tests over and over. Failure was not an option. At 1:30 a.m., the red alert finally vanished. The firewall held steady, and the system passed initial compliance checks. But my heart raced. I knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when we submitted the patched proposal. Then came the sinking feeling. A small notification popped up. Autosync proposal package submitted. My stomach dropped. I hadn't hit send yet. I scrambled through folders, pulled up the shared drive, and there it was. The wrong version, incomplete and unsecured, had been sent automatically because the final metadata tag hadn't been updated. For a long moment, I froze. Then adrenaline surged through me. By 4:45 a.m., I'd recalled the submission, just in time before the client opened it. I rebuilt the entire proposal from scratch, integrating all new components, reworking phrasing, matching formatting, and triple-checking every reference. My hands shook as I typed, but I kept going. At 6:28 a.m., I finally hit send again. Confirmation blinked on my screen. Proposal uploaded successfully. My breath came out in a slow, shaky exhale. I hadn't smiled. I didn't celebrate. The office was silent, empty, except for the distant hum of the city waking up outside. 12 hours ago, I was battling a system breach. Now, I sat alone, drained but determined. The contract, our lifeline, was safe for the moment. But the victory was hollow. The team was gone. Liam hadn't responded once. My messages went unanswered. I was the only one holding the line. By 7 a.m., exhaustion hit like a freight train. My body screamed for rest. But I pushed on, triple verifying encryption layers and compliance schemas. My mind raced ahead, running scenarios of what could go wrong. I wasn't just patching software. I was holding together a future for the company and for myself. At some point, the office cleaning crew arrived. A kind-eyed woman gave me a nod. "Still here?" she asked softly. I nodded, too tired to explain. She smiled. "Whatever you're doing, I hope it's worth it." It was. It had to be. Hours later, when the final approval came from Marcus Talbot, the client lead, it was just a one-line email. "Thanks. All approved. Great work." No fanfare, no praise. But to me, it was everything. Yet, even that small lifeline wasn't enough to stop what came next. The next day, I was called into the HR conference room. Daniel Shaw, the executive overseeing the restructuring, sat across from me. His tone was flat. "We've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position. Effective immediately." My mind went numb. After 39 hours of saving the company's biggest contract, after exhaustion that sent me to the I was being let go. I reached into my folder and pulled out the revised proposal. Printed and highlighted. This is the version I submitted. It secured the contract. Daniel didn't even glance at it. "We appreciate your contribution, but this is a structural adjustment." Then I saw it. The author line on my own work. Lucas Graham, the CTO who left me alone that night. He got the credit. That was the moment I broke inside, not with anger, but a cold, deep clarity. They didn't see me. Not really. I was just a function. A ghost behind someone else's signature. But I wasn't done. That evening, after the shock faded, I sat alone, fingers trembling over the keyboard, determination rising again. I wasn't going to wait to be recognized. I would build my own path. That night, after the meeting, I barely slept. The walls of my apartment felt thinner. The city noises louder. My mind replayed every moment. Lucas walking away. Daniel's cold dismissal. The proposal I'd painstakingly rebuilt now bearing someone else's name. I felt invisible, erased, yet I knew I hadn't failed. The contract was safe because of me. Days passed in a blur. I avoided emails and Slack. I didn't respond to messages from HR or colleagues. The company felt like a distant planet, one I had been unceremoniously ejected from. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I didn't want to see them. The world I'd fought for was moving on without me. Then, out of nowhere, a message from Marcus Talbot appeared on my screen. Marcus, the client who had seen my work, the one who mattered. His message was simple. "Hi Maya. Are you available to talk today? Just 10 minutes. My heart leapt. For the first time since being let go, I felt seen. I replied immediately, and we set a call for that evening. When Marcus called, his voice was steady but urgent. "Maya, I just found out you're no longer with Sentinel Dynamics. To be honest, we were blindsided. You were the reason we signed. You earned our trust. You saved our timeline. You knew this infrastructure better than anyone on our side." I swallowed hard, emotions thick in my throat. "We don't trust them without you." Marcus continued. "If you're willing, we want you to lead this project, but with Renex Technologies, our biggest competitor." It was a shock. An unexpected lifeline thrown when I thought all doors were closed. Renex was fierce. Their reputation was built on speed and innovation. But they lacked the insider knowledge I had of Lauren Defense Systems. Marcus was offering me a chance to rebuild, on my own terms. The conversation ended with an invitation to prepare a proposal for Renex. I felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. That night, I walked to the old bookstore cafe where I used to work on late nights. The familiar scent of coffee and paper soothed me. Lexi, the barista, greeted me warmly. "It's been a while. Looks like you're back." I nodded, a small smile breaking through. I opened my laptop, pulling up files I'd saved, frameworks, contingency plans, my personal archive of the infrastructure I'd built. These weren't company secrets, they were the bones of the system. The blueprint of everything I'd fought to protect. I started drafting my proposal, laying out a vision that was mine. No watered-down ideas, no credit stolen by others. This time, I was the architect, the leader, the one calling the shots. Days later, I sent my proposal to Marcus with a message. "Prepared to lead the transition when you're ready." The reply was swift and enthusiastic. Meanwhile, whispers started circulating online. News articles broke about Sentinel Dynamics losing the Lauren defense contract. Headlines hinted at leadership turmoil, staff departures, and internal chaos. I saw my name mentioned, not as a victim, but as the architect of the success that was slipping through their fingers. Inside the walls I'd left, Daniel Shaw scrambled to contain the fallout. Jonah, a quiet engineer I had mentored, left me a voicemail explaining the crisis meeting Daniel had called. No one saw it coming. Jonah said, "They know now it was a mistake to let you go." Though I was far from their drama, I couldn't help but feel a quiet satisfaction. The truth was finally surfacing. But my focus was on what came next. Renex's COO, Dana Witt, was waiting. Our first call was brisk and professional. "We've been expecting this," she said, referencing Marcus's introduction. I laid out my vision clearly: full control of the integration, direct access to client leadership, and a seat at the decision-making table. She listened, then smiled. "We tried to recruit you months ago. Glad you waited." Within hours, I was negotiating my role with their CTO, Felix Grant, sharp, demanding, but open to my expertise. By the end of the day, I had an offer that recognized my worth: Director of Defense Integrations. With the contract transitioning with me, for the first time in weeks, I felt in control again. That evening, I sat back, reflecting on the twists that had brought me here. The betrayal, the exhaustion, the isolation, all shadows fading in the light of new possibilities. The first morning after accepting Renex Technologies' offer, sunlight poured through the large windows of my new apartment. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't the harsh glare of an office screen or the sterile fluorescent light of a hospital room. It was warm and soft, like a quiet invitation to start fresh. As I sat at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee, I let my mind drift over the chaos I'd left behind at Sentinel Dynamics. The betrayal of my former team, the cold dismissal from leadership, the exhaustion that had nearly broken me, all felt like distant echoes now, muted by the clarity of this new chapter. I realized something vital. I had spent so long fighting to be seen, to be acknowledged, that I had forgotten the most important person who needed to see me: myself. At Sentinel, I'd been trapped in a system that valued appearances over substance, politics over passion, and comfort over courage. I'd worn invisibility like a second skin, working tirelessly in the shadows, hoping for a sliver of recognition. But what I hadn't understood was that my worth wasn't dependent on their approval. I was not just a cog in the machine. I was the architect of the machine itself. This shift in perspective was both liberating and terrifying. It meant no longer waiting for validation from those who had proven unworthy of my trust. It meant owning my narrative, embracing my voice, and demanding respect, not as a favor, but as a right. I spent the morning reviewing my proposal again, this time with a different lens. I wasn't just preparing for a project. I was preparing to lead a movement within Renex, to build a culture that valued transparency, resilience, and innovation. For years, I had been defined by what others saw me as: a background player, a problem solver, a quiet fixer. Now, I was determined to redefine myself as a leader, a visionary, and a force to be reckoned with. Later that afternoon, I met with Dana Witt and Felix Grant via video call. The energy was different from my last encounters with corporate leadership. There was respect in their voices, an eagerness to listen, and a willingness to empower. Dana said, "We're counting on you not just to execute, but to inspire, to change how we do things, to be the change agent Sentinel never saw." Felix nodded. "Your frameworks are solid, your logic impeccable, but leadership is about more than technical skill. It's about building trust, fostering collaboration, and navigating uncertainty." I listened, absorbing their words but also grounding myself in my own truth. This was my moment to lead on my terms, to create an environment where others like me wouldn't have to fight in silence. That evening, I reflected on the people who had shown me kindness in the darkest moments: Jonah, the quiet engineer who had believed in me; Kara, who had acknowledged my work when no one else would; and even Mr. Lewis, the night security guard who brought me orange juice when I was at my lowest. They reminded me that leadership wasn't just about titles or contracts, it was about connection, empathy, and lifting others up. I sent Jonah a message thanking him, and he replied simply, "We're just getting started." For the first time in months, I felt hope, not the fragile hope of waiting, but the fierce hope of action. The next days blurred into weeks as I settled into my new role. I handpicked a team of engineers, many from my old networks, people I trusted and who shared my vision. We worked long hours, but this time, the energy was different. It was collaborative, inclusive, and driven by a shared purpose. I introduced weekly check-ins focused not just on technical progress but on well-being and growth. I encouraged openness, vulnerability, and celebrating small wins. The culture was transforming, from silent struggle to collective strength. Through it all, my perspective continued to evolve. I realized that the pain I'd endured was not a weakness but a catalyst. It had stripped away illusions and forced me to confront what truly mattered: integrity, courage, and self-respect. One afternoon, I received an unexpected email from Daniel Shaw, the executive who had let me go. The subject line read, "Let's talk." For a moment, I hesitated, then I deleted it. I had no interest in revisiting old wounds or seeking validation from those who had failed me. My path was forward, clear, purposeful, and unshakable. At night, I often sat on my balcony, watching the city lights twinkle against the dark sky. I thought about the invisible battles so many people fought daily, the ones no one saw or acknowledged. And I vowed that under my leadership, no one on my team would ever feel invisible again. I wasn't just rebuilding systems, I was rebuilding lives. The morning sun filtered through the blinds as I settled into my new office at Renex Technologies. The skyline stretched before me, a symbol of endless possibilities and fresh starts. It was a far cry from the dimly lit, silent nights I'd endured at Sentinel Dynamics. This was my arena now, a place where my ideas would be heard, my work valued, and my leadership tested. From day one, I knew this wasn't just about salvaging a contract. It was about reshaping the future of defense integration, building something resilient from the ground up. I was entrusted not only with technology but with a team I carefully curated from the engineers I respected and the rising talents I believed in. One of the first people to join me was Ethan, a bright, nervous new associate whose energy reminded me of myself years ago. His enthusiasm was contagious, and I made it my mission to mentor him, guiding him through the complexities of our work while fostering his confidence. Our project hub was meticulously set up, and the client review was scheduled for 11 a.m. Conference room B was prepped, and Marcus Talbot was to join via secure line. The day felt charged with anticipation and promise. When Marcus appeared on the screen, his warm greeting was more than professional courtesy. "Maya, good to see you leading where you belong." I nodded, steadying my voice. "Let's finalize what should have been done right the first time." The meeting flowed with precision: new rollout schedules, integration checkpoints, contingency frameworks. This time, my frameworks were intact, credited fully to me. No more invisible labor or stolen recognition. By 11:57 a.m., I signed the full contract package. The signature line read, "Maya Larson, Director of Defense Integrations, Renex Technologies." That quiet click of paper on leather was the loudest victory I'd ever known. But beyond the contract, the real opportunity lay in what came next: building a culture of accountability and innovation within Renex. I spent the afternoon assembling cross-functional teams, handpicking engineers from my network who shared my vision. Kara, who had once stayed late to help track down elusive bugs, was first on my list. When she messaged me, "If a spot opens, I'm in," I smiled. Of course she was coming, and she wouldn't be alone. My leadership style was different here. I encouraged open communication, regular feedback, and a focus on well-being. The scars from Sentinel Dynamics reminded me what could happen when people felt unseen and unsupported. I was determined to build something better. Amidst the busy days and long nights, I received an unexpected message, an email from Daniel Shaw at my old company. The subject line read, "Let's talk." For a moment, my fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't reply. There was no room for old wounds in this new chapter. Instead, I focused on what mattered: the future I was building, the team I was leading, and the opportunity to rewrite my story on my own terms. As the weeks passed, our progress caught the attention of industry leaders. Our strategic infrastructure proposal, clean, innovative, and robust, became a benchmark for other projects. And I found myself busier than ever, not just managing systems but shaping a legacy. One quiet evening, I sat at my kitchen counter, ginger tea in hand, reflecting on how far I'd come. No confetti, no grand celebrations, just a deep sense of peace. My inbox buzzed with vendor emails, client updates, and a draft contract for an AI-enhanced logistics feature Marcus wanted us to explore. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The weeks that followed marked the most transformative period of my life, not just as a professional, but as a person. Every challenge, every late night, every difficult conversation at Renex Technologies was shaping me into a leader I hadn't fully imagined before. Early mornings became my ritual. I'd arrive before sunrise, a cup of coffee in hand, ready to face whatever the day would throw. But unlike the past, I no longer approached my work with a sense of desperate survival. Instead, there was purpose, a quiet confidence that came from knowing my worth and owning my decisions. Leading the defense integration team was more than managing technical architecture. It was about fostering resilience. I learned to listen deeply, to see beyond spreadsheets and code, to understand the people behind the systems. Ethan, the nervous newcomer, evolved rapidly under my mentorship. I saw glimpses of myself in him: the eagerness, the doubt, the hunger to prove something. When he faced setbacks, I didn't just offer solutions, I shared my story. The struggles, the sacrifices, the moments of invisibility that had almost broken me. That's why I pushed so hard, I told him one afternoon during a team check-in. Because I don't want anyone here to feel like they're fighting alone. That simple sentence became a mantra for our team. We weren't just engineers, we were a support system. A community bound by shared purpose. My leadership style shifted too. I embraced vulnerability, admitting when I didn't have all the answers, encouraging collaboration, and empowering others to take ownership. The cultural shift was palpable. Morale soared, innovation flourished, deadlines were met not with fear but with excitement. But growth wasn't just about others, it was about me. I confronted the lingering shadows of my past, the exhaustion, the betrayal, the silent nights at Sentinel Dynamics. Therapy became part of my routine. I learned to set boundaries, to say no without guilt, and to prioritize my health alongside my ambition. One evening, as I left the office, the weight of 39 sleepless hours from months ago echoed faintly in my mind. But it no longer defined me. Instead, it reminded me how far I'd come. I found joy in small victories: a successfully deployed patch, a grateful message from a colleague, a clear, focused mind after a good night's sleep. The project grew beyond my initial expectations. The AI-enhanced logistics feature Marcus wanted was now in development, a testament to our team's expertise and my leadership. At a recent industry panel, I was invited to speak about innovation in defense technology. Standing on that stage, with hundreds of eyes on me, I felt a surge of pride, not just in my accomplishments, but in the journey that had brought me there. I spoke candidly about the importance of resilience, of owning one's story, and of breaking free from systems that silence quiet strength. Backstage, as I packed up, a young engineer approached me. "Thank you," she said softly. "Your story gave me hope." In that moment, I understood the true power of growth. It wasn't just about me. It was about lighting the path for others. Growth also meant redefining success. It wasn't the contracts or the titles that mattered most. It was the impact, on my team, my industry, and myself. I no longer measured worth by the approval of others but by the integrity with which I lived and led. One night, as I reviewed quarterly reports, my phone buzzed with a new email. The subject: "Let's talk." It was Daniel Shaw again. But this time, I was different. I read the message, then smiled and deleted it. I didn't need to explain or justify. My growth had made me untouchable by the past. The future was mine to write. The morning sun filtered softly through the glass walls of my office at Renex Technologies. casting warm light on the dashboards, the neatly arranged folders, and the team photos I'd pinned up over the past months. This was no longer just a workspace, it was a sanctuary where my vision thrived. Where every success felt deeply personal. The contract I'd once saved alone was now fully in my hands. Flowing through every decision, every meeting, every code review. At 11:57 a.m., I had signed the final compliance addendum. My name, once erased and overlooked, was now the stamp of authority on a multi-million-dollar project. The weight of that moment settled in, a quiet victory after months of struggle. But it wasn't the signature that defined my triumph. It was the journey, the sleepless nights, the silent battles, the endless determination to prove not to anyone else but to myself that I was worthy, capable, and unstoppable. I thought back to that night when the alert had first blinked red. The hours spent fighting a system that threatened to unravel everything. I remembered the cold silence of the office, the absence of a team, the sting of being sidelined, and I felt a fierce pride in how far I'd come. Success, I realized, wasn't always loud. It didn't always come with applause or fanfare. Sometimes, it was the quiet click of a mouse, the steady hum of a server, and the deep breath you took knowing you had endured and won. My team was growing stronger each day. Ethan, now confident and assertive, led a subproject with skill that reminded me of my own beginnings. Kara was spearheading the UI overhaul with passion, her eyes lighting up when we celebrated milestones. We weren't just building technology, we were building trust, respect, and a shared future. One afternoon, during a team meeting, I paused to look around the room. Faces bright with determination, voices filled with ideas. This was the family I'd chosen, the team I'd nurtured, and I knew we were unstoppable. But leadership wasn't without its challenges. There were days when doubt crept in, when the weight of responsibility felt crushing. Yet, each time, I reminded myself of the quiet strength that had carried me through those darkest hours. That strength was no longer hidden. It was my foundation. I also thought of the people who hadn't believed in me, those who dismissed my work, took credit for my labor, or left me alone in the fight. Their shadows faded in the light of my accomplishments. I wasn't here to prove them wrong with anger or noise. I was here to show what true resilience looked like, calm, steady, and relentless. Late one evening, as I packed up for the day, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus Talbot. "You really did it, didn't you?" he wrote. I smiled and typed back, "We did it, together." That simple exchange was a reminder that success is rarely solitary. It's a collective effort, built on trust and shared vision. The headlines about Sentinel Dynamics' loss of the contract had faded, replaced by stories of Renex Technologies' innovative strides. My photo appeared in industry articles, not as a forgotten engineer but as a leader driving change. Still, I kept my feet on the ground. I knew the journey was far from over. One quiet Sunday afternoon, I found myself reflecting on everything, the sacrifices, the battles, the moments of doubt and courage. I realized that my story wasn't just about career or contracts. It was about identity, self-worth, and the power of standing firm when the world tries to erase you. To anyone watching this, anyone who's ever felt invisible, dismissed, or undervalued, know this: your worth is not determined by others. It's something you claim for yourself, quietly but fiercely. You don't need permission to lead, to shine, to build your own legacy. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from what no longer serves you and create a new path with unwavering conviction. My journey was not about revenge. It was about reclaiming my story, my power, and my future. And now, as I look ahead, I do so with the quiet confidence of someone who knows she's just getting started. My journey taught me that true strength isn't always loud or visible. It's the quiet resilience to keep going when no one is watching, the courage to stand firm when the world tries to erase you, and the wisdom to know your worth even when others fail to see it. Success is not about applause or recognition from others. It's about honoring your own integrity and pushing forward on your terms. Sometimes, the greatest victories come not from external validation, but from the inner peace gained by reclaiming your narrative. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel overlooked, undervalued, or dismissed, remember Maya's story. Start by recognizing your own value. Write down your accomplishments. Reflect on your strengths. And seek support from those who truly see you. Set clear boundaries to protect your mental and physical health. And don't be afraid to walk away from environments that drain you. Use setbacks as fuel for growth. And find or create communities where your contributions are acknowledged and celebrated. Most importantly, don't wait for permission to lead your life. Take charge. Rewrite your story. And build the future you deserve. Thank you for choosing to listen to this story among thousands of stories out there. Like and subscribe to continue listening to the latest stories.